Developed by two psychologists called Joe and Harry. Serious, it was. I just thought I'd touch about this in relation to what we've been talking about. And they call it this window because it looks like a window. And they say there are things known to you about you and your style and your approach and your kind of sense of humour, everything. You know, there are things known to you. There are things unknown to you about things that you do, how people react to that. You might not have picked up that people kind of don't laugh at your jokes or something. And there are things that are known to you and known to others about you, but there's some things which are unknown to others. So this is what you're trying to do, and they haven't got it. So this area is called the open area. I actually call it the performance area. This is where you need to be. That pane needs to be as big as possible in that window so that you have clear, open communications. Now, I mentioned I could come going back to my time in the car industry in the bad old 70s and 80s. Some of you probably don't know this history now, but I was joined at the same time as Michael Edwards was given the role by Margaret Thatcher to take over this business. And one thing that Michael Edwards was absolutely determined to do was put management back in control, because it had been run by the unions, without a doubt. It had been run by the unions. And one of the things he instituted straight away was each management team had to go away for team development, for this weekend team development, to bond and think as a team, so that you took cabinet responsibility, you made decisions properly and you followed them through and discussed those particular items. What he also said was, anytime a new member came into that team, you had to go away to do another team development, the whole team. Because what he wanted was this area to be as open as possible. For someone joining a team not to kind of feel, I don't understand this, I don't see how it all works. He spent time doing that. Now, there are things which are unknown to you. These are your blind spots. And how do you get rid of your blind spots? Feedback, exactly, yes. The only way you can get rid of those blind spots is get feedback. Now, some of us are wary about feedback. We feel like it shows a weakness in us if we ask people, how am I doing, how can I improve? But it's a real strength, and it's the only way you can increase that kind of pane of that window there. There are things which are unknown to others about what you're trying to do, and how do you deal with that? You disclose more. Like Wagner Dodge, communicate, not unlike Wagner Dodge, communicate, give more context to what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it. And then finally, there's this, what they call unknown area, which is, if you like, as I said, when I take leaders out in a boat, they've never experienced it, the team have never experienced it, so they learn a lot about each other in that process because they're challenging each other to go somewhere different and further. So feedback and disclosure, and what they call this shared discovery. But I know it's a very simple concept, but I think it's really powerful for you to reflect on and think about, how big is my open area? How clear are people in terms of what I'm trying to do? How clear am I in terms of how people take me, get me, in terms of what I'm trying to do in the organisation? Are they absolutely clear? And it's quite a good thing just to write down some of those things in those boxes and ask yourself, well, how can I change that? How can I improve it? How do I know? Okay. So that's just kind of putting a line under not under the Wagner Dodge story. Any other? See, now that was a terrible question. If I say to you, any other questions, the answer to that is yes or no, isn't it? If you want to encourage questions, you shouldn't say that. You should say, what other questions must you have? I still don't get any questions. Okay. We'll be having a break in about 20 minutes. And so I'm going to cover two other topics before we get to that. Just around the leadership mindset. So I'd like to talk about this thing called fixed and growth mindset. There's been a lot of research into this recently, and you can, if you look on the BBC website, it's a great, there's an awful lot of it there, because this lady called Carol Dweck, you've got to have a strange name to write a management book, it seems to me. Carol Dweck did a lot of research into this whole thing, and she said there seem to be two types of kind of people. There are people who have what she calls a growth mindset, which means that they believe they can get better at anything. They can do lots, they can improve by practice, you can get better. You can always get better at everything you do. There are people who are what she says have a limited mindset, and those are people who believe what they're good at is a natural talent. You know, this is who I am. This is where I am. I'm this kind of leader. And people get into that fixed or growth mindset. Now, what's important is that these can be changed, but also what's important is that the effect they have in terms of how we deal with things. Now, the one experiment which has been repeated loads of times, she's done this a lot with children in particular, because children is a time when you can start influencing this growth and fixed mindset, is that she got a group of kids and gave them a test. And then to half of them, she said, out of earshot to the other half, to half of them she said, "You did very well. You're obviously a very talented group of kids. Well done." To the other group, she simply said, "Well done, you did well at that. You must have worked really hard to get that." Nothing more. Those are the only words she said to this group. A month later, she retested them. The group that she said, "You are very talented," their performance had marginally gone down. The group that she'd said to them, "You worked really hard," their performance had gone up significantly. Just by the words, in terms of how we think about things. Now, must see people around the organisation who have got that, who actually think it's natural talent and don't think I can be improved and everything like that. While they've got that, it becomes difficult for them to deal with some of these issues. If you've got a fixed mindset, you'll tend to avoid challenges because you'll think, well, you know, I am as good as I am. I can't get any better than that, so why challenge myself? Because it's going to show up my weaknesses. Obstacles you'll tend to give up. Why put too much effort into it? Because I can't improve. You know, I'm not going to put any much more effort into it. Criticism will feel like it's right at me. Because if it's my natural talents, when you're giving me feedback, you're actually saying you are not a good person. And those of us, I guess most of us probably in the room are parents or Alex's kids, and one of the things you're always told about kids, aren't you, is not to say you are naughty, but you did a naughty thing, which is part of this kind of stuff. And the success of others you'll see as a bit of a threat, because you'll see them as better than you. By the way, you will have copies of all these slides sent to you at the afterwards. But on the other hand, if you have more of this growth mindset, what that leads to do is kind of embrace challenge, persist, see effort as, yeah, that's what you've got to do to be good at something. Criticism, if someone gives you some criticism and feedback, you'll be open to it because you'll be saying, yeah, I need that. How can I improve unless I get feedback from people to see how I can do things better? And you'll see the success of others as inspiration. Hey, look at what they've done. I could do that. So these people tend to plateau, and these people tend to kind of strive for higher achievement. And it's fantastic. I think the Olympics recently has been a great example. You listen to some of those runners that came after winning gold medals, and they said, what do you think about your performance? Well, I was glad I was won, but there's a lot of things I could do better. They were saying, weren't they? They were never said, oh, that's the best I can do. I'm plateaued. I'll never do anything better. No, I don't need anyone to say that. So to be good at anything, really you've got to get yourself more into that growth mindset. Now, why am I saying this? Because I think this is a huge thing that's very simply you can do as a leader in terms of trying to encourage people to think about just simple messages about we've done that because we worked hard at it. We've pushed ourselves. We've pushed, not you're very good. And there's a tendency in the language around the place, we just say to people, oh, well done, that was very good. You're good at that. Well done. When in fact, what we should talk about more specifically is about what they've done to achieve that, to encourage this. And secondly, the thing to ask yourself, to what extent have I got a growth or limited mindset? And it is a choice, because you can just start to think about things. Well, why? I mentioned that book, Bounce, and it just said that it isn't about talent. It's 80% at least about practice. And so it's 80% at least about practice. That's growth mindset. It's not what you're born with. You can improve and you can be better at doing that. How does that fall with people here? Of course, if you say it's no good, then I'll tell you you've got a limited mindset, won't I? So.